Hello once again, digital world. Welcome back to yet another episode of Spliced In Later. I hope you all had a great weekend and you caught some of the movies that I reviewed for you over the weekend, Raya and the Last Dragon and Coming to America, and maybe you didn't, and that's fine for sure. You can do whatever you want. But I thought for today's episode we would continue the trend of talking about stuff that's just come out, as well as it fits in with a lot of what I talk about on here, superhero shows, specifically the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the MCU. And considering the final episode finished last Friday, I thought now would be the perfect time to give you Spliced In Later's thoughts and opinions about the new Disney Plus show, WandaVision. Now, I am beginning, not too long ago, a recurrence of sorts in regards to the MCU. I'm going to be going through and talking about all the different properties and the good and the bad and all that. So far, we've only done Iron Man. And I am going to go chronologically, but we are sort of skipping to the end here for WandaVision. But otherwise, I don't think I'd get to talk about WandaVision until a good 30 plus episodes from now, which just is too long to really get my thoughts and opinions out to you when I want to talk about it right now. So, WandaVision is the first in a new series of TV shows. Now, the cinematic universe has been dominating the box office in terms of the films and the way the films work and coincide with each other. I've said many a time on this show how much it works, how each can have their own standalone franchise, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man, all of them, but also can interweave with each other seamlessly to a point where if you are familiar with all the franchises, you appreciate it, but if you aren't, you still understand what's going on. But it's an ever-growing, expanding web that is constantly building and shifting. I think there's another 6 films that have got scheduled release dates in the next 2 years, plus a whole bunch of others that have been announced as being in development. But MCU hasn't always limited itself to the movies and has often tried to branch out into the television shows with middling success. However, the continuity between those two properties has not been as on point, mainly a fault of the separate departments or people working on the movies not coinciding with the people working on the TV shows. For instance, we had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which just wrapped a 7-season run, a great show. I love it. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was really the most prominent show that tried to ingratiate everything that was going on in the MCU into his property. But it was a one-way street. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would react to things that are going on in the movies. The movies would never take into account what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing to affect their storytelling in any way. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would alter its course dramatically depending on what was going on. I mean, if you're familiar with the concept, the movie Captain America: The Winter Soldier changed the whole scope of what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was about. But as we went forward in time and the MCU got bigger and bigger, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. struggled to incorporate everything while also having to react to what was going on. There was no way in heck that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could do a bit where they incorporate the 5-year gap of Thanos snapping his fingers between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. It just wasn't possible. And nobody cared to try and make it work, really. They just wanted to do their own thing, which is fine. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went and became its own continuity of sorts, but still, if you allow yourself to look past the quips and issues, it's still a part of the MCU. All the other shows, moderate success, not to the extent of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in terms of how they ingratiate themselves into the MCU, but still like to throw off a few little references here and there. And the shows, for the most part, were great. Agent Carter was a fantastic show that was on over too soon. Netflix shows Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage had some really solid seasons and some great characters for sure. Some great villains. Probably the best villain development for most of the MCU villains. Even extra shows which you had to subscribe to streaming services or on online specific things like Runaways on Hulu or Cloak and Dagger on Freeform. They were all very interesting shows which every now and then threw out a reference to Iron Man or whatever. But that was about it. And as the shows got more and more, and the movies got more and more, it sort of fell to the wayside. However, with the end of Avengers Endgame, and with the release of Disney Plus, we're going into new uncharted territory where the movies and television departments are all blended into one, run by the unstoppable Kevin Feige, Fuji, however you pronounce his name. He's operating in a world now where Disney Plus will consistently be releasing TV show after TV show about what could be considered the lesser known MCU heroes, or the heroes which probably wouldn't get their own movie but can run their own TV show. And things that happen in these shows will affect what happens in later movies. WandaVision, which has just been released, supposedly will lead directly into Doctor Strange. And in reverse, the TV shows will react to things that have happened in the movies. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier that's coming out. Is Sam and Bucky reacting to Steve Rogers no longer being around and taking up his mantle to keep the legacy of Captain America alive? So it's really, it's fun, and it's also a huge corporate shill. It's very much making all the MCU people who are addicted to the show and the concept of the growing universe, it's making them get onto Disney Plus so they can catch all this extra stuff. But it's also a lot of fun. It's a lot of new content. It's a lot of consistent Marvel, considering we just came out of 2020 where there was absolutely nothing, just one last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and something called Hellstrom, which might be one of the worst things I've ever seen. But it'll be interesting to see if the MCU can continue to stand on its very iron four legs with so many new avenues to explore, so many worlds to open. Will it stay as seamless as it is in terms of its expanding universe? I don't know. I think it might get too big for its own heels and it might collapse under its own weight. But for now, let's be optimistic. We only have had one show at the moment, so it could go either way. But we just finished a 9-episode run of the new show WandaVision. Now, if you are unfamiliar with what WandaVision is, I don't want to talk about any of the plot in it. I don't want to spoil it. There will be very light spoilers in here, possibly. And if I accidentally do spoil a couple of things, I apologize. It is hard when you're trying to sum up a show in total because the show relies on discoveries, things you learn in the show, the execution of finales and theories and everything else like that. So if anything slips through, I apologize. But I will say right now, if you don't want to risk it, stop listening to this now and go and watch WandaVision. It's all out now. Episodes are varying lengths of 30 to 45 minutes. You could get it done in a day. And then come back and listen to what I have to say. Cool. Are you back? Did you enjoy it? No? Yes? Anyway, let's move on. WandaVision is a very interesting concept. It stars Wanda Maximoff, played by Scarlett Olsen. Elizabeth Olsen. That's really frustrating. I'm constantly having to correct my mother because she's always confusing Black Widow and Scarlet Witch. And I'm always like, come on, it's not that hard. It's Scarlet Witch and Scarlett Johansson. It's not that hard to differentiate them. And I just screwed it up myself. So I apologize to you, mother, if you're listening. Apparently, it's a lot easier to do. No. WandaVision stars Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen, and the Vision, played by Paul Bettany. And the show opens with them in a sitcom setting. And for the first couple episodes, they parody sitcoms from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And it's Wanda and Vision acting like a couple, living their lives in a comedic sitcom, having to deal with things like the boss coming round for dinner and the promotions up in the air, depending on how good the dinner goes. Getting ready for the arrival of a pregnancy and what to do with that. Getting drunk, doing a magic show, all the usual staples of sitcoms of the early days. Now, it all seems perfectly harmless in the beginning. Obviously, if you're familiar with MCU, you're like, why are Wanda and Vision doing this? We do know that Vision, spoilers for Infinity War, did in fact die. So the big mystery is, what's he doing alive and why is Wanda and him in this sitcom? Do they know they're in it? Who put them there? What's going on? There are these little tidbits of information that something is not quite right as you go through the first couple episodes. By episode 4, you get a big reveal of exactly what's going on, which helps to bring in other characters from the MCU to put into the plot that work seamlessly in the beginning, but I do think fall to the wayside by the end because I guess who was ever making WandaVision didn't know what to do with them for the climax. But they bring in Darcy from the Thor films and Jimmy Woo from the Ant-Man films and other characters. So once you get that information, then you realize that something very sinister is going on, and you still don't quite know exactly what's going on. Other characters suddenly appear, which are surprising in itself, let alone played by completely different people. Is this on purpose? Is this by accident? What does this mean in the larger scale of things, especially now that Marvel and MCU have got the rights to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four characters? Will they be integrated into this, considering Wanda is a mutant in the comics from the X-Men world. She's the daughter of Magneto. So will there be integration into this? How will that come into play? What's going on? Who's the villain? Will we get our answers? And for the most part, you do, but not in the way you would expect, for sure. For the positives for this show, you gotta hand it to Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. They are stupendous actors, and they are absolutely wonderful in this show. It's really Elizabeth Olsen's show over Paul Bettany. Paul Bettany's vision is more the MacGuffin of the show, the mystery. It's fun to see him in it, but you don't know why he is. Whereas you see the way that Elizabeth Olsen plays Wanda, and you know that she's aware of what has happened to a brief sense, and it is her grief and her upset at losing Vision and losing so many people in her life, her brother, her family, being at the center of terrible tragedies such as the civilian slaughter in Captain America Civil War and all that other stuff. So she is a very damaged individual, but she's also one of the most powerful individuals as well. I mean, she was one of the few people that could take on Thanos for just a little bit face to face. So that says a lot. So the big mystery here is has Wanda's grief caused what is going on? Is she aware that she's done it? And if so, are we leaning towards a fact where Wanda could become the villain of the show? There's so many unanswered questions in the beginning, and you get little bits of answers going along, but not so much. But what keeps you watching, what keeps you invested every week is the portrayal of Wanda and Vision, seeing their relationship, seeing the two of them act against each other. Wanda grows increasingly desperate and upset and confused. Vision goes more aware as he goes forward, knowing something is definitely up and not being behind it in any way, going out to investigate it, being the hero that he is. Getting a third view from our other characters looking in on this crazy life that Wanda and Vision are living. Who's involved? Are the people watching good? Are they bad? How are Darcy and Jimmy and all the others involved in all this? What's the ultimate goal? What's the end point? What malevolent force really is behind all this, or is manipulating things for their own benefit? So many mysteries absolutely highlighted by the portrayal that we get from Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany. They are great. I could watch Paul Bettany's Vision in everything. I remember being happy that Paul Bettany was just voicing the computer AI Jarvis way back in Iron Man. And for that character evolution to go from Jarvis to being the Vision is perfect. And having Paul Bettany back in this show, in my opinion, is hinting that there are bigger things in store for him. We have not seen the last of the Vision, whether it was on Infinity War or on this show. So I'm intrigued to see where that's going. And another benefit of this show, and what I think will be good for the future shows going forward, is that it does do justice to Wanda. Not in a huge sense, but we learn way more about her in these 9 episodes than we have in all the other movies that she's been in. For Wanda, Vision as a sense, but Wanda specifically, has suffered a lot in the movie she's been in, because she's either been played up to be a villain or a catalyst for events that come into play, but we never really delved into her psyche, her drive, her ambitions, her tragedy, everything that's going on with her. She's always been reactionary to what's going on. And as is understandable, with 35 other superheroes, she gets lost in the flow, especially when we always focus on the big four: Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Thor. So with some of these characters taking a step back after Endgame, it's good that these other ones that have been in the background for so long are starting to go forward. And this first example, this first experiment with Wanda and Vision, wonderful, great, had a great time with them. I don't want to see a WandaVision season 2. I think these shows that we're getting on Disney Plus will be great as event miniseries. I don't want to turn into a point where it's WandaVision season 5, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier season 3. No, these are they're movies, but they're not movies. You know, they're event series. They're something that tells a singular story that does not need to be elaborated on cliffhanger after cliffhanger to keep going on and on, bringing in new character, all of that. No, this was a simple, easy story when it wanted to be. Doesn't need to be anything more. The sitcom gimmick as well, I really enjoyed in the beginning. I don't think it needed to go on for as long as it did. 9 episodes, I think, was a little bit too long. I think we could have gone with 6 episodes and only have the first 3 maybe be sitcom stuff. Have the first episode be a pure sitcom because we don't know what's going on. But once we knew some answers, but we didn't get answers to other things, I do feel like around episodes 6 and 7, the show is spinning its wheels because it didn't want to reveal anything until the last couple episodes. But by the downside of that, by the time we got to episodes 8 and 9, suddenly we only had 2 episodes left and we had 9 or 10 questions that needed to be answered. So we steamrolled through them at a very fast pace to the point where we got answers to everything, but certainly not all of them were satisfying. However, as I said, the gimmick was fun when it was good. Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen fell into whatever sitcom role they were playing remarkably well. The very first one, which was based on I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke Show, filmed before an actual live studio audience, the comedic timing, the pausing while the studio laughs, the delivery of the lines was great. It was very reminiscent of those shows. It felt like it could have been pulled from one of those shows. And with each change, they got to another type of sitcom, whether it was Malcolm in the Middle or Bewitched or Modern Family. Everything felt correct to what they were referencing, which was good, which was very entertaining at the time. No other show can boast this. I imagine when we go into The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's going to be more of a straightforward MCU thing. So that's another thing. Hats off to experimenting, to doing other things, to doing new things, to always trying to shake things up so it's not the same stuff over and over again. At least in the beginning of the show, that's for sure. I loved it. I loved the character development, the story, all of that. What really has, though, knocked it down for me, because I would have 3 weeks ago from now, I would have come at you saying WandaVision is the greatest, could be one of the greatest shows of the MCU, a great thing for sure. The ending has really let me down, and the more I think about it, the more frustrated I get, because I can't tell if they ran out of episodes due to the pandemic, or they set up so many theories and questions and didn't have answers to everything, so they focused on answering some, and the others they just turned into jokes. And I also don't know if they ever had a plan to finish it up properly, or if they always knew, right, so we're going to see these characters and this storyline and these themes that we're exploring in Doctor Strange 2. So our main point is to lead into Doctor Strange 2. As a result, don't finish the show, lead on to the other thing. In their defense, they didn't really do that exactly. WandaVision itself definitely finished, but not in a way that felt natural, in a way that felt sudden and very rushed. And there's one other thing I have to say, and it's the moral of this show vexes me, and I don't know if it's because the producers and the people behind this show wanted me to see Wanda's trauma and everything she went through in this in a certain way, in a sympathetic way. Not so much. Wanda does some stuff in this show which is borderline supervillain. She hurts a lot of people, tremendously so, in very scarring ways that these people that she's hurt will have a long time getting over this once the show's over. But as the show's wrapping up and that's all coming to play, everybody's sort of going, oh, but Wanda, poor Wanda, she's her love is gone, and her grief, and she's done all this for the people. The people will never realize what she sacrificed. The people couldn't give a toss what she sacrificed, because they've been in a state of agony and terror for the past 9 weeks because of what she's put them through. So that's a huge draw from back for me, is I can't watch this episode and be like, I can't feel for Wanda in that way. I feel bad for her for feeling upset and being broken and whatever, but I cannot go, so I look past all the other things she's done. Absolutely not. I cannot do that. And I don't understand why I look at other people reacting to this show and they're just like, poor Wanda, she made the ultimate sacrifice. She truly is the hero we need. It's like, not right now. Not right now. Wanda is a broken individual who still needs a lot of self-healing before I would ever feel comfortable putting my fate in her hands again. Wrapping up my overall opinion of the show, I would say that WandaVision is a solid first attempt at these new Disney Plus shows that are going on. Great lead acting from Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. Wonderful gimmick, entertaining, embracing the comedy side as well, and the zaniness of the MCU, and embracing going places that has not been gone before. Limit the scope of the show by a few episodes, tell a more self-contained story. Don't introduce things that you don't have any idea of what you're going to do with later on, whether it's characters from other MCU movies. That is fun to see them there originally, but if you don't have a plan for them after that point, find a way to write them out. Don't just let them just hang around doing nothing. Don't bring in mysteries where you're just going to two-time the audience to a point where they're more frustrated and annoying. The biggest mystery of this show turned out to be a boner joke. And while that's funny in concept to think about, it's also incredibly frustrating, incredibly annoying. Oh, and one other thing before I wrap up. There's a great performance in here from Kathryn Hahn. She plays Agnes, the nosy neighbour of Westview. I can't go too much into her overall goal and purpose in the show, but Kathryn Hahn played her delightfully. She was zany, she was wacky, she embraced every type of nosy neighbour from each era of the sitcom that she was in, and she was fantastic. And I also think that she was given a disservice towards the end of the show as well, as with most of the characters, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention her. So Kathryn Hahn, as well as Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, stupendous, great stuff. Overall, I would give this show a 7 out of 10. I would have given it much higher. A couple of weeks ago, I would have put it up there in the 9s, but it did not stick the landing. Not only did it stumble, I think it really did trip and fall. The messages, the morals that they're pushing, I do not agree with as well. Yeah, tremendously so, which really hampers my overall enjoyment as the end going back on that. But still, as with most MCU things, it is a very enjoyable time from start to finish. Great characters, great world that's been built. Wanda and Vision are great protagonists, and I can't wait to see more of them in other things. If you've got Disney Plus, if you need to scratch the MCU bone, this will do it. But please be true to your beliefs and your thoughts when you're watching it. If something doesn't seem right to you, it's okay to disagree with it. I am a big MCU fanboy. I love the heck out of it. But even I can look at this concept and its execution at the end there and its overall message about Wanda and what she does to people. And even I can go, I can't agree with that. That's not on. But you have to watch it for yourself and make up your own opinion. One day I'll do like a spoiler-filled review of WandaVision, and I'll talk about all the little bits and reveals and things and what I liked and what I didn't. But it is not this day. All I'll say is WandaVision, great show, 7 out of 10, could be higher. But check it out and decide for yourself. Thank you very much for listening. As always, it has been a wonderful treat to talk to you, and I hope you will heed my advice and check out WandaVision and come to your own conclusions. I will add this to the MCU playlist, but I will, of course, be adding other movies and TV shows to it as we go into that. For next week, there will be no episode as I am off to a wedding, and I will not be back at all around my usual time for recording. So we'll just take the week off. But I will be back the next week, possibly a day late, but I will be bringing you a review of Godzilla vs. Kong, which I'm very excited to look into that. One of my most anticipated films of the year. But until then, stay safe, everybody. I love and appreciate you as always. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.